Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. Most of our loyal listeners have noticed that we've been on a bit of a hiatus this summer. We took a break to recharge after a few mad months, but sometimes you need to go away for a while and dream it all up again. In this episode that we recorded on the 4th of July, we pulled the curtain off of our upcoming plans with a big announcement from my longtime co-host Eoin Fitzgerald that brings us to a fork in the road with Money Never Sleeps. But before we get into all that, Eoin and I take a look back at my experience with the Techstars Web3 class of 2023 founders and our distributed demo day at the end of June, with 3 investor events across 3 cities and 2 countries in 5 days, and a real-life story of planes, trains, and automobiles. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. Hey, Eoin Fitzgerald.
Pete Townsend, how you
How
doing,
you
buddy?
doing, pal?
Good, all good. Enjoying your 4th of July?
Awesome. Yeah, no. The big thing for today is going to find the hot dogs.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. We left it a bit late because usually we go a few days before, and you get to Dunn's and they've got the good hot dogs, and I'm thinking I may be getting bottom of the barrel this year.
Oh, no. I get the stuff out of Aldi. They're decent enough. Kids like them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but now the kids like them, so they could be terrible for all I know. I don't eat them.
Ooh, no, I don't either. I wouldn't touch them. But,
Yeah.
we'll see what we end up with for hot dogs this 4th of July. But
Yeah.
Listen, you've got some big news.
I do, yes. And I was glad to chat to you. Obviously, most people won't know yet, but in 13 days, 2 weeks' time, I'll be starting a new job. I'll be leaving Enterprise Ireland after 6 years and starting a new job in the central bank, specifically focused on innovation engagement. So there's a new team being brought into central bank. It's around innovation strategy. We're looking at, creating a strategy in innovation and financial services, and then also how do we enhance the current engagement. So a lot of people be familiar with the Innovation Hub, or maybe they're not. It's obviously a focal point of engagement with the central bank, whereby startups, even incumbents, large companies can come in and talk to some of the teams and get a bit of an informal chat around areas they're looking at, upcoming regulation, that sort of thing. So it's been a really good start, but that's been in place a couple of years, and now they want to raise that to the next level. So yours truly is coming in to lead out specifically on the engagement piece. We got a really good team coming in. Specifically, there's 3 of us going to be looking after all things innovation strategy at a kind of horizontal level all across the bank, which will be great. But like that, specifically, I'm looking at engagement. So out and about, anyone that wants me at panels, coffee, meetings, you name it, I'm available. The more I can listen and learn and bring into the bank, the better.
Sounds
So
like a
that's the
dream
plan.
job for you.
Yeah, do you know what? Now that I'm kind of looking at it in more detail, I'm like, yeah, what do I love? Being out in the market.
Yeah,
I've missed it over the years. And when with COVID and people only been in certain days, I haven't got as much of it now. I'll be dedicated in the office at least 2 to 3 times a week. So really looking forward to meeting people, being part of the conversation. And like that, I've been doing public sector for 6 years. I found it really kind of fulfilling, the ability to do something that I know is adding value, it's adding jobs, all that good stuff. Now I'm coming to kind of the same side of the fence in that respect, but at least trying to make a difference. That's what I've enjoyed doing. So fingers crossed it'll work out. Might come back on in a few months' time, see how it goes.
Yeah. No, we'll see. And yeah, there's some, obviously big impacts for what it means for us, but let's come back to that in a few minutes, because I had some trip last week.
Yeah, I know. Tell me all about it.
Oh man. So the big thing that we did with the Techstars Web3 program this year was to say, we had a huge learning from 2022 when we ran our first program. We had a wonderful, big, huge demo day in Dublin at the end of the program at the Irish Rock and Roll Museum, which is the Button Factory. You were there. It was a great night.
Event. Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
300 people, and we had 600-700 on the live stream. That was on YouTube, simulcast, whatever you want to call it. And the problem was, in the VIP room upstairs afterwards, where we all were and had a great time, there were like 3 investors. So that's just not good enough. And the fact is that, Ireland is a small economy, and that's absolutely fine. It punches above its weight in so many different areas. But in terms of Web3 venture capital, it's me, it's Patrick Pinchmid from Middle Game Ventures, part of the time, Barry Downs from Sure Valley Ventures, and Connor Cantwell from Cosimo Ventures. There's a few others that are dabbling in a bit. Mike Brennan at Finch dabbled in it a little bit. Few others, but That's it. Okay. So we decided, let's take this show on the road, right? And said that instead of doing a huge demo day production, we're going to do investor dinners, investor breakfast to get right to the outcome that we wanted, was investors and founders engaging together in meaningful conversation in person. So we did a warm-up act in Waterloo. We had, why Waterloo, right? ETH Global, right? The big hackathon
Yeah.
was on. And
Cool.
funnily enough, Laura Walsh, who is our entrepreneur in residence, shout out to Laura. She did an awesome job on the program with us this year. She came out of her hotel room and was walking to the elevator, and there's Vitalik Buterin from the founder of Ethereum. And she's, I don't want to tell the story, but I think it could have ended up in a situation where maybe he could have come and talked to the cohort, and Laura had a certain reaction to seeing Vitalik, and we will just leave it at that. But, that was our warm-up act, right? We had a dinner in Waterloo. We were hoping to get maybe 15, 20 investors. I think we got 7 or 8. But all of the founders got to practice they did it obviously, in front of investors, but a 1-minute pitch that turns into a 2-minute pitch. Everyone stands up at the dinner, gives a 1 or 2 minute pitch, and then, tries to have a conversation with investors during and after dinner, right? It was a good time, but it was a warm-up act. Our big one in Canada was at the Collision Conference. We had an investor breakfast at this restaurant called Stratus up on the 36th floor in one of the RBC buildings. So that was, I think we had 17, 18 investors there out of
brilliant.
35, confirmed. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. You kind of get 50%. Yeah. And we had some good conversations there and mixed up the format a little bit, just had some tables where the founders were sitting down and the investors came and they move around. Everyone got kind of like this breakfast buffet. But that was at the Collision Conference on the first day of the conference. So, although there were some, 17 investors there, and tack that on to the 7 that we had from Waterloo. Okay, we're on our way. That was on the Tuesday morning last week. And then by Wednesday night, we had to be in New York City. Oh. No problem, right?
Yeah.
No problem. We had a breakfast. We were done by 10:30, 11 o'clock in Toronto. And people headed towards the airport. And then as the afternoon went on, one by one, everyone's flights were canceled.
Oh, no.
Okay. And so mine was one of the last one canceled. And one of the other founders was also on that flight.
Weather related, was it? Yeah.
It was weather. It was Quebec firestorms. It was
course,
thunderstorms in New York City. It was staff shortages, you name it.
I mean, you can plan for everything except all of that.
Oh, totally. So half of the cohort, including Hugh McGurr, who's our investment principal, shout out to Hugh, his flight was canceled early. And so he scrambled. And he said, all right, how am I going to get there? And all that was left to get to New York City from Toronto was to do an overnight bus. So that was I think it was like 12-hour drive from Toronto to New York City. And so he booked that. And I'm sitting there in the lounge in Toronto in the airport, sitting pretty, thinking, hey, my flight's at 7, I'm all set. And then like 6 o'clock rolls around, my flight's canceled. By that point in time, that bus from Toronto to New York City, that was full. So a bunch of, I'd say five or so of the founders, including Laura Walsh, our EIR, were already booked on that bus. So I scrambled. I sent out a WhatsApp to my family and said, hey, here's my situation. Ideas, please. And people came up with a bunch of different ideas, including, hey, just get yourself to Buffalo. Okay. So Buffalo, New York is a 3-hour drive from Toronto. So get over the border. That was the main objective. Yeah. Once you get over the border, you're kind of in,
lots of options then.
Yeah. So I booked a bus from Toronto to Buffalo, took the train back into the city, back to Union Station in Toronto, and, it got to the bus. And I get to the bus, and there's Hugh McGurr and Laura Walsh and 3 or 4 of the other founders, right? Because it was the same bus. It was just I had to get off the bus at Buffalo because more people are getting on the bus in Buffalo to go to New York City.
Okay.
So got off the bus.
Worked out well.
Got off the bus, stayed overnight in Buffalo. Well, it was like 6 hours at a hotel is all it was because I got there at midnight. And then it was a 9-hour train the next day to Penn Station in New York City. Got into Penn Station at like 3:45, ran to the hotel that I had booked for 2 nights and obviously missed the first night there. and got cleaned up and made it to the restaurant where we were having the investor dinner at about 5:30 for the 6 p.m. kickoff.
Wow.
So it was
action-packed.
nuts. And we had some founders that were on the train with me from Buffalo. They had drove from Toronto to Niagara on the Canadian side of Niagara, and they returned their rental car there. And then they had an Uber drive them to the border. The Uber would not drive them over the border.
That's crazy.
So they had to walk over the border from Canada to the US and go through the security checks. And then once they got over to the other side of the border, they were able to get an Uber to bring them to Buffalo to the train station. And they got there just in time in 2 Ubers to get on the train. And the others got in with Hugh and with Laura early that morning and got some sleep somewhere. Everyone got there. You ever see that movie, Getting to the Greek?
Yep.
Right? The name of the restaurant that we were at in New York City was called The Smith. So I just got to get those T-shirts made, Getting to the Smith.
Yeah.
Because everyone, bar one founder who decided he just had to get home, he just went from Toronto because he didn't want to take a chance. And he unfortunately missed the event. So we had 11 of the 12 founders there with us. And it was the CEOs, because it was CEOs only that were coming, because that's who the investors want to talk to.
Course,
the investors want to talk to the CEOs. Obviously, they would enjoy speaking with the CTOs and the chief commercial officers and strategy officers and COOs and all that. And they're all wonderful people and wonderful founders. But in terms of if we're going to have this audience of having more investors in the room than founders in the room, then you want the CEOs in the room, right? So it was, again, that was our best event. We had 25 out of our 27 confirmed.
That's really good.
And I sent those emails like after the Toronto event where we got 17 out of 35. I'm like, I want more. I want 25. And we got 25. And I sent all those emails out while I was on the train and saying, please, just want to make sure you're coming tonight. And that helped. And that got a bunch of people there. Also, Maëlle Gavet, shout out to Maëlle. She is the CEO of Techstars. She came down and just said a few words to the founders and to the investors, for 5-10 minutes. That was awesome having her there.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it just really kind of, to me, pointed out the strength of New York City as a city, right? And as an investor city. And investors are serious. What do investors want? Investors want to invest.
Yep.
And that when they can get some quality deal flow and meet some quality founders all in one go like that and get a nice dinner put in front of them. And the unique thing we did at dinner is that everybody sat down after having a drink, they sat down for their starters. And then after the starters were done, and it was kind of a family style dinner that we served, that everybody got up, the waiters came over, cleaned the tables, put down new cutlery and plates, and then people sat down in different places. So you got different conversations.
Oh, nice.
Going.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then
speed dating. Yep.
Dinner was put down. And then after dinner, everybody got up and they had dessert up at the bar. Right?
Oh, cool.
Those big, huge, massive chocolate chip cookies with, I don't know. I don't eat that stuff. Body's a temple. So anyway, obviously, 4 or 5 days later, still buzzing. I had to get back. The only thing I regret is that, obviously after the dinner, we went out to another pub, had a great night, had a few good chats with people. I flew back the next day from JFK. Biden was in New York City that day, and traffic was terrible. It took me 2 hours to get to JFK, but I got there and got home the next morning. And my daughter, my eldest kid, my daughter, I missed her actual graduation event on the Wednesday night because that was the same night at school. But apparently I didn't miss much because it was all in Gaelic and Irish.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't have understood it anyway.
I wouldn't have had a clue. Yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't have had a clue.
Yeah, no. So I'm glad I got it because I got home for the last day of school, and that was a really meaningful
that was
one.
Important. Yeah.
And where all the kids line up from the whole school, like junior, senior infants, perhaps through to 6th class or 5th class. And they create this bridge and holding hands one on the other side. And all the kids run through like this tunnel.
Oh, that's cool. It's a nice
and
touch.
they all come out the other side crying because, the boys
never see each other again.
Yeah.
It's cute.
But it was really cool to be able to get that. So I got that in. What that meant, though, was that we didn't have a in-person end of program closure event with just the founders and close friends of the programs. Is the only thing I regret. But what that really underscores is the fact that, this is forever, right? Techstars is for life. So not having that closure event is kind of like, although it would have been great to have that celebration together, it's kind of like, hey guys, the story continues. Those that are going to raise are those that take the momentum that they get from these events and they just push forward and they keep going, right? And so we'll, do our full recap. Myself and Hugh McGurr will get together and figure out how it all went and, take our next steps for planning the next program.
Brilliant. Look, it was a mad trip, but at the same time, it sounds like it was a great kind of really successful program. Like, look, last year's one was really successful as well, but obviously the learning from that and what you did with the investor stuff, like, you're dead right. You got to go to where the market is.
Yeah.
It sounds like there were really good events there.
Yeah, and it's so outcome orientated, and that's how my mind is just shifted on this. What is it that we really want to get out of this? And it's a great way to kind of look at anything that you're doing. What is it you want? What is the outcome you want?
And work backwards, yeah.
And who was it? Remember Brian McDonald
from
Bay Advisory? He was the one who said, when we did that 2-part special with him a couple years ago, he said that when he sits down with a founder who is thinking about selling their business or thinking about doing a deal, a merger acquisition, he says to the founder, forget about everything else. What is it that you want, right? What is it that you really want to do? What is the outcome that you want here? And let's work towards that. And if that includes selling a part of your business, great. If that involves not selling your business, well, let's walk away from this deal, right? Yep. And so it's, I'm kind of just, I don't know, maybe hitting 50 just got me thinking a bit more about, what is the end game? Right. Yeah. What is the end game? Obviously we're working through the middle game right now, but what is the end game? Yeah. So, but that's cool. Looking forward to taking a few weeks off and digging back in towards the end of the summer and getting this all going again.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, no, look, it was a great program. Had some really interesting companies. So excited to see where they kind of end up next.
Yeah, I am as well. And just so many cool things happening with all of them. And, they've now all joined my wall of fame, which you can't see, and obviously no one can see. This is audio, but I now have 21 companies up there. My 9 from last year, from the first Techstars Web3 Accelerator, and then my 12 from this year. And I now have 4 categories. So gaming and sports, right? I've got DeFi and FinTech. I've got creator economy, and I've got infrastructure. And that feels good, right?
That
good. Feels like
nice broad portfolio.
Yeah, I'm covering the bases of what of what Web3 really means to me. And, but we'll save that story for another day. But listen, with all of this, Eoin, given your new gig, there's certain things that you're not going to be able to do anymore.
No, I know, unfortunately. And it was a nice conversation that happened after I accepted my new job.
Exactly.
But, by the way, you can't do the podcast anymore. I was like, no. And in fairness, when we'd been chatting about me taking the job, it was the first thing you flagged. So I was like, oh no, I'm sure it's fine. Just put in a disclaimer.
Exactly.
No, unfortunately not. And look, I mean, I've been in the public sector long enough. That's the nature of the beast, which is fine. It's sad. I've hugely enjoyed doing this with you over the last 5 years, 5 and a bit years. And I know I'm not on it as much as I used to be, but the amount I've gotten from it over the years, founders, investors, even just random people that we've invited on, and then the friendship with you and all that, it's sad coming to an end, but like that, look, it's for a reason, so that's fine, as opposed to it just kind of fizzling out. And the great thing is it never fizzled out. It's like that, it could easily have kind of tailed off after the first year. There were times when it was hard and we were kind of funding some of it ourselves at the start and everything, but here we are 5 years later. It's an incredible achievement. So.
Oh yeah. No, I'll miss you.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
And all of these chats that we've had, and just call it that.
Yep.
And I think it takes a certain type of relationship between two people. The one to be able to say, let's record our chats and send them out to the world, but also that learning from each other.
Yeah.
And that there's just been so many things that have happened in this crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it.
Yep.
That we've talked about, and covering news stories and whatever, and talking to guests, and where you bring up a point and I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. And that kind of opens up a whole new tunnel. It's like you're playing a video game and you're running down one path and then you trip over a gold bar and all of a sudden it opens this door to this other secret path to go down to, and you've got some treasure at the end of it, right? And it's like, if you were that gold bar I tripped over,
Yeah.
So
But do you know what, Pete? One of the things I'll miss is your random in the moment analogies. That always makes sense, but I'm like, where did he pull that one from?
you know where I pulled it out of. But no, and that's it. And the flywheel being the biggest part of all this.
Yeah.
Looking at a business or looking at an industry or looking at a situation in investing, and where you see these multiple pieces that are driving momentum and can drive momentum if they're put together properly.
Yep.
And it's fascinating. And some of it is just consultant speak. But if you can really grab a hold of it and see how some of these pieces work. And I remember when you were like, listen, who was it? Where you first brought it up with a Disney.
Yeah, it's
right?
Disney stuff, yeah.
It's the Disney flywheel. And you had seen, I think Prof G perhaps mentioned something about it.
Yep.
And you jumped in, and then we just started thinking about it. I remember I did one podcast. It wasn't even a podcast. It was a Twitter Spaces. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to test this out with you. Is that okay? We're going to get Twitter Spaces. She said, we'll get probably like 70, 80 people. I'm like, I'm going to go through this. And I'm going to test out this theory and see if it works.
Yep.
Didn't really work because I hadn't thought through it enough or talked through it enough with you. And by the time that we had I think it was a good 5-6 months later. And that would have been the summer of 2020, I think, where it was like, all right, now I got it. And it's just become so much more evident. And, just figure out some of the stuff that I've been doing for the last 6-7 years. And I talk to founders all the time about this little flywheel of once you get a product that you've started to build and you've got enough of a product to be able to put that, a prototype, to put that in front of customers, you get some customer feedback. Once you get that customer feedback, you can then take that and bring that together and put that in front of investors and say, we've built a little bit of a product. Here are the customers we've identified. Let's get a little pre-seed round going. You get enough raise to build your product. And you build that product. And then you go out and you get some real customers. And then you use that together to get some revenue and then to get your seed round done. And it continues and continues and continues. Right. So just, I don't know, these little mental models of how to think about situations and how to influence behavior even, that came from this. That came from doing this together with you all these years.
And it's so funny because we barely knew each other at the start. And I just remember being like, oh, Pete has a good voice. Like, he seems fairly sound. Let's see if he wants to do this podcast. But what stuck in my mind was like, Pete has a good voice. I don't know. I don't think I sound, when I listen back to myself in like videos, I'm like, I don't know how I sound.
No.
I don't think I sound like that. But I was like, Pete has a good voice, so we go with him.
Yeah, no, you've got a unique voice yourself as well. There is a depth of the bass in there that can be really helpful. And what was it? It was someone anonymous, but who is well known in the Dublin financial services industry, said to me once, Pete, we don't want you for what you know. We don't want you for who you know. We want you for your accent. That was your accent sells.
But it was a bit more than that, but there was an element of that too.
Yeah.
No, do you know what? I knew just by chatting to you that I was like, oh, look, I think we are coming at things from a similar place. And I think that's what's shown over the years is that you don't see it as often, and like it's kind of where people fall down in some respects, but we both know what we don't know. So we'll read anything and everything.
Yeah.
And like the books that you'd be talking about and the stuff, I'm like, oh, I must write that down. I must look at that, and I'll send you stuff. And like that, it's like the flywheel thing. And then we're looking at it, or we're talking about some news article in relation to like a Revolut or some product or something. And then like it's the thought process as we're kind of looking at it and thinking about it and discussing it, and the learnings we get from that, from your insight, my insight on it and stuff. I'm like, it's been incredibly valuable for me doing my job and everything over the years, just as we've thought through things and talked to founders and, unpicked conversations. We do our usual, here's our 10 questions. We might cover none of them. We'll only ever cover the last one, you know, and we'll see how it goes. And that's been a great journey. We've had some incredible guests and conversations over the years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, and just thinking back to the beginning with Brian.
Yeah, in Dogpatch.
Yeah, Brian and Dogpatch, and, the first 10 episodes, getting Paul Smith and Laura Smith from Top Tier Recruitment on the show first, but then as sponsors.
Sponsors.
Right?
It's key to keeping us going at the start.
Yeah, and Chris Adelsback, that, chat number 15 with him and Martin Cass. Yeah. And, just all of the different relationships that have unfolded because of this podcast.
Yeah.
Very much for me. And when people ask me about, Pete, give me your, story in a nutshell, and I start from 2015 or 2014 when I went down the blockchain rabbit hole, and then 2016 jumping out onto my own, I always say, listen, one of the big seminal moments of my career has been doing this podcast and what
cool.
it does for building relationships and building strong relationships quickly. Because what better way to start off something with somebody than to have them put themselves in the palm of your hand for 45 minutes and let me shape them, right? And let us shape them. And then let me edit that, right? And hopefully make them sound as good as possible with some of the new podcasting tools like Descript that I've been using for the last couple of years, that makes it really a heck of a lot easier to make people sound good. And I always mention that as being something. It's also been, our B2C experiment.
Yeah.
How is it that you can build up a following? How is it that you can build up a fan base and get people that will every week tune in and listen? And it's not easy to do, but it's something that has given me a heck of a lot more appreciation for the founders that I invest in that are pursuing a B2C strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually, it's been incredibly impactful. So thank you for asking me to do this with you.
No, absolutely. And thank you. I think what's been clear, and for anyone listening and any guests, is that we're both passionate about it. We started out to tell stories. Because like that, it's like, money never sleeps. I'm up at night because I'm just reading this stuff and I'm interested. What's keeping founders up at night? Well, why don't we just ask a few of them?
Mm-hmm.
But it was really from the personal journey, not, tell us about your company. We want to know about you as a person. Why did you start doing this? Why are you being, mad going after this idea and stuff? And that came across, and I think that turned out into good episodes then, because you were getting the real personal side of people's stories because we actually were interested.
Yeah.
And it was what I found fascinating over the years is, the tell us something people don't know about you. There's such a range of random things that come out of that conversation and that question. Whereas you think of this person, they're the founder of this fintech or a Web3 company or whatever. But yet, we had the guys who played violin in Albert Hall or whatever. And then the other founder who was a trained midwife, or he delivered babies or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so many
Pete
random
Rose.
things. Yeah,
Pete
Rose,
Rose.
from Tech Enable, so just really personal kind of understanding why people do something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's oh man, just the people we've had on the show, all these nuggets of wisdom that we've gotten. Like Mick Sweeney, I think that was episode 110 or something like that. Yeah. He's the CEO of PineBridge Investments Europe, and just such a sage of wisdom, and just told so many great stories on that episode. And just going back to like we talked about the beginning with Brian, but also Mai Santa Maria.
Oh, and so much time for Mai. Brilliant.
She is absolutely brilliant, and just having.
It was a chance to. It was great because we had an idea of what we wanted to do, but we had full control over it, so we could just randomly have whoever, which meant kept it really interesting. Because like that, I could just, some of the more interesting guests we had on, in some ways, had nothing to do with fintech. I just wanted to talk to interesting founders.
We had Fiona Edwards Murphy on the show.
Yes, that was fascinating. From APIs Protect.
APIs Protect, yeah.
Yeah, all about bees and everything. I just found it a fascinating company. I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll ask her to come on, and she did. Or Bradley Tusk is still one of my favorite ones because obviously it marries kind of politics and investing and everything, things I'm really interested in. And this is a guy who's done it with some of the biggest names in the world. And he gave us the time, and you've been able to reach out to him on stuff in the past, and we've kept in touch with him. And it was fascinating.
I was going to meet him in New York City, but because I was on that train from Buffalo at that time, we had to cancel the meeting.
But sure, he was an early enough or reasonably early.
He was like episode 26.
Yeah. And
something
then
around there.
To build that relationship. Peter Gagan, who was part of kind of Open Democracy and wrote that book around kind of, dirty money, democracy for sale. I just found that stuff interesting. So I got onto him and he came on the show. Irish guy, great story, really interesting what he's trying to do. So we've been able to just occasionally dip out of, fintech and stuff and just talk to really interested founders or people that we want to kind of shine a light on some of the stuff they're doing. Yeah.
No, it's been great. And, I think some of the highlights, even logistically, switching to Anchor.
Right? Oh God, that changed the game.
Oh, big time. big time. That was around episode 94, and it was so much work to get off of Transistor and move on to Anchor. Anchor is which is now Spotify for podcasters, and they're adding even more tools to the mix now.
But I remember
it's still free. It's still free.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we were trying to arrange like back-to-back sessions, so we'd get like 4 weeks worth of content in a day, and someone would have to move their thing, and we'd be sitting down in top tier's offices.
Yeah.
We'd rent it for the day, and all of a sudden we'd have no guests or one guest, and we'd have, what are we going to do at the time?
Oh, it was ridiculous. Doing that video,
such a challenge.
Doing that video episode with Gene Murphy. I saw Gene recently, really good guy, and I think not doing video, and I was listening to Tim Ferriss talk about this. Yeah. Tim Ferriss is able to run his entire operation for his podcast with 3 people. And he said that if he had done video, that it would be so much bigger than that. And doing a couple of video episodes and having to do some of the editing around that, it's far too time consuming.
No, and it didn't add much. Like, it was great to see Gene and have a video of him. But other than that, it didn't make any real difference whether we're talking about it or not. And I think people are more comfortable, like they can see us on the screen, but it's just their words being out there.
Absolutely. And, the shift to fully remote, like you said, after, not going into the top tier offices, not going into their WeWork anymore, that's been changed. That was a significant shift as well, because that just opened up the landscape.
Overseas,
Opened up the landscape big time for founders that we could talk to.
And even the shift from during the day, not that I was recording during the day in Enterprise Ireland or anything, but the shift to nighttime recording.
Yes.
The kids had gone to bed.
Yeah, I know.
9:00 on a Wednesday.
I know. And it felt like that was always like, the end of a very long day, and it was somehow just rejuvenating.
Yeah. I always was buzzing after. I wouldn't want to go to bed then.
Exactly. And obviously big shout out to Conan Brophy. He's been with us the whole time
from day one. Yeah.
I haven't seen him in person since before COVID.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's nuts. It's like not that we'd hang out all the time, but we keep meaning to try to get together for a pint. Yeah. He's moved down closer to me now, and so Conan is going to be listening to this. And Conan, let's get together for that pint at the end of August or early September. Let's just do this, because it's been far too long.
He's been a great support. Like, absolutely
huge. So
good thing. Yep.
I think where we're going to go from here is, I've got a couple of ideas. I've been listening to Tim Ferriss a lot, and he's kind of challenging my mindset.
Yeah, I have a lot of time for Tim Ferriss. He's brilliant. Yeah, his guests are brilliant, and the way the conversation goes with him, like, always really informative.
His book Tribe of Mentors, I'm in the middle of that, and that's incredible. And a few books coming out of that I want to read. But what he was talking about with Bill Gurley, and he did an interview with him where Bill Gurley interviewed Tim and said that he does go deep into each guest before the show to really find some nuggets and find something uncommon about them that people wouldn't ordinarily expect, which we do at the end of the show, right?
Yeah.
And that he really pokes and prods at that, but does it in a safe way that allows people to kind of skirt the question if they don't really like it, and then gives people full edit rights afterwards. And it's like, I go deep into their LinkedIn profile, but I think I can go a bit deeper. So I want to get back more into the really craftier type of interview. Sorry, not craftier type of interview, but interview crafting. That I
really
have been
teasing
doing.
out those nuggets.
Yeah, really teasing out those nuggets and getting more into the conversation. And I think that I've got a few guests lined up for September already, which will be fun. And also thinking about trying to do some guest co-hosts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
be a great idea. You have no shortage.
Keep the Money Talks segment simple, and that I pick 2 stories and another guest picks 2 stories, and we just go through them.
Yeah.
Right? And like you and I had done, and it will be an interesting, different perspective, yet irreplaceable from your content and style and delivery.
Over the years, I learned I grew to love the Money Talks more, partly because I was sometimes the only chance we had to catch up on any given week.
Exactly.
But also like that, it was just teasing out things that I've been thinking about. I'd be like, oh, let's chat about this, because, this thing has been, or maybe here's a different slant on this other thing. And as much as I love talking to the founders, I'd said to you, like, oh God, half a dozen times, or if not at the least, been like, oh, maybe we should do Money Talks as its own thing. And then you're like, no, reminding me of the workload.
No. Yeah, absolutely not. So I'd say using some of these newer tools I've been using for the last couple of years have cut down my workload by about 30%,
Yeah.
which has been great. But I'm adding it back on by the fact that for all of those, I started using DALL-E 2, right? Which is
For
the
creating your
sister app
pictures.
of ChatGPT, instead of going into Pexels or one of the other stock photo websites and pulling things down, which I used to spend way too much time on, but just trying to create, and this is crazy, but create an image that reflects the founder that we're talking to, or the entrepreneur, or the person we're talking to their company, to the hip hop track that you selected as the episode title. That triangulation is insane.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT's sister app, DALL-E 2, has allowed me to do that with a bit more aplomb. And I did that for all 11 of the 12 Techstars Web3 episodes that we did this year, because one of them, poor Lee Gray from Sonics, I just ran out of time. And it was just his picture and my picture on a starry sky. And that was about it. So I may go back and find another one for Lee and replace that on the website. So
It's been great to watch your creative side come out with the tools in the background over the years.
I heard someone say, when I was in the corporate world, I had to hide my soul in a sock so nobody could see it. And I'm like,
it's a great way to phrase it.
I had to hide my creativity in a sock. I absolutely did. And it's definitely come out over the last 6-7 years, and you've helped to bring that out. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. This is our last great sign-off.
This is our last sign-off. I don't have anything unexpected to tell you, Pete, that you don't know about me already.
I thought of one. And I was going to ask you to share one yourself.
Yes. Okay, go for it. Tell me something people wouldn't expect to know about you, Pete.
And this came out of reading Tim Ferriss's Tribe of Mentors, because one question he asked people is, what is some strange thing that you just enjoy, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I like killing flies with my bare hands.
I'm sure there's a psychologist listening somewhere being like,
I have, and obviously we're 4th of July, we're into the summertime flow here. Yeah. More flies in the house, because Des Bishop said this once: if you want to live in Ireland and you want to have your doors open in the summer, you have to love flies, because in Ireland there are no screens. You have sliding doors, there are no screens. You have windows that you open, there are no screens. The flies will get in your house. You have to love flies. I actually love killing flies. And it's not necessarily the Mr. Miyagi thing with chopsticks, although I may try that. Yeah. It is just bare hands, get rid of it, and then wash my hands, because I have OCD about clean hands. And so, just in case anybody ever wonders why, that is something that people wouldn't expect to know about me.
Oh, there you go. Well, do you know what? It's funny, because I obviously have to look after all the spiders and all related bugs in my house as well. But there's a kind of like, the kids are all panicky because there's a spider, and Daddy just strolls in, looks after it. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel good about myself.
I get the shouts, the screams. Oh my God, it's bigger than my face. It's like, it's no bigger than my fingernail.
Yeah.
Anything about you?
Anything, people? God, I'm trying to think. I've shared a lot over the years, usually as a way to make the guest on the other side more relaxed about sharing something.
Yes.
Do I have anything?
Was there something about goats or sheep?
No.
There was a story that you told once that you were at a wedding. And I don't know if you said this on air. Yes. You said this to me off air.
Yeah. So actually, okay. So myself and Kira, my wife, we'll watch like some of my favorite kind of shows to watch or movies to watch are just stupid comedies.
Yeah.
Like Superbad and all these sort of ones. And there's one Adam Sandler one with Jennifer Aniston, Just Go With It, I think it's called. And like you could look at it and be like, this is pretty shit. But actually, I find some of that humor hilarious. So the entire thing, Adam Sandler creates this fake identity. He's trying to win this girl over, and he creates a fake version of himself. And Jennifer Aniston, who he works with, ends up pretending to be his ex-wife, and they ended up somehow going on holidays with this girl that he's trying to hook up with. And they have to bring his friend, who he works with. And the guy, again, just randomly gets stuck in this situation where the girl asks him at dinner, what does he do? And he ends up having to create an entire fake persona, because that's what they've all been doing. But he becomes this guy, and he calls himself Dolph Lundgren, but he's not the Dolph Lundgren. He just happens to have the same name. And his business is selling sheep online. And you know what? There's a small clip, and I just think the whole thing is hilarious. Regardless of how many times I've seen it, that particular piece is hilarious because he puts on a German accent, and it's all about why would people buy sheep individually, and they use them for, like, you know, guard sheep and for dressing up and all these sort of most ridiculous things. And what I enjoy doing is just randomly coming up with stuff in, like, personally, when I might ring someone on the phone or whatever, and like Kira I think she on one hand cringes and at the same time thinks it's hilarious. But I've been really good over the years for keeping a straight face whilst telling you the most ridiculous thing to your face.
Yeah.
And I find if you do it with confidence, people will be like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So often when I'm at a wedding or especially if it's somewhere people don't know who I am, that's what I'll do. I sell sheep online, but individually, not like flocks of sheep or anything, just sheep online. Gotprettysheep.com is the website. And I can do it so well now. I can do it, like, I just can't do the accent in the same way, but I can do it so well. And not many people have seen that movie because, like I said, it's generally terrible. But that particular piece is hilarious. So yes, in my spare time, I sell sheep online.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. Oh my God. No, you tell that story really well. I have a similar story around Matt Damon and high school and things, but it's no, that takes the cake.
I just find a perverse kind of amusement out of telling people as outrageous something as I can think of. Well, like, I'll always tell them I'm just messing after that.
Yeah.
Just to see, because you find like that people will believe you randomly.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I know we're not going to be talking in the recorded format any longer, but we will be talking.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, farewell, and your last sign off, your last dance for Money
the last
Never
dance.
Sleeps.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, awesome.
Take it easy, Pete.
Adios, pal. That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Eoin Fitzgerald for everything we've done together over the last 5 years, and mostly for just asking me to help him with a podcast idea back in 2018. You're a true friend, Eoin, and thank you so much. Don't forget to check out the show notes on our website, MoneyNeverSleeps.ie, for more. If you like what you heard, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it helps others to find the show. Thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early-stage startup investor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3, and I lead the Techstars Web3 Accelerator. There are plenty of links in the show notes on MoneyNeverSleeps.ie on how to get in touch, so don't hesitate to reach out. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.